traditional organizations was the average age in that room for me was 27-year-old. And 80% of all their stack is open source. Things that a lot of us in this room either have no experience about, we don't care about, or it doesn't help us do managed services, it doesn't help proprietary revenue, and a lot of those issues. So clearly what's happening outside is there's a ton of investment in open source. You'll be surprised. Go to a company called Matrimony.com. 80% of their environment is open source. Go to a company called Geo. 80% of them is open source. They're not using Kafka, they're using the open source query search engine. And that's the big way wherein it's a survival of the swift test, not the fittest. And I came to that conclusion because I asked this gentleman in my panel and I said, all these open source projects are dangerous. You know, they're not proprietary software, it's not stable. He said, Sachin, you don't have the time to spend 90 crores every single month on an SAP environment and stabilize that in 3 years. It's a lot of money spent. So what they've done is a company called Asian Newsnet in Chennai. I was speaking to them yesterday. They went 100% serverless 2 years ago. 100% serverless, 100% open source, which means they do not spend a dime or a penny on maintaining, managing very expensive environments around infrastructure. Just for the sole reason that they want to be quick to the market and they want to dominate the media industry in a very big way. So, so disruptors are also being disrupted. And just for perspective, 20 acquisitions were made last year by Microsoft and they spent $2 billion to really be relevant in the new age world. So, this entire narrative of traditional organizations being irrelevant is irrelevant. Today, even startups are getting irrelevant. And that's a big way for us to go out and help them because a ton of these startups are struggling with actually a lot of technology choices that they are making. And I'll give you another very classic example. So we were called in by a very interesting startup. It's a travel startup based out of Singapore. And they said they wanted us to do an IT audit. So we did an IT audit, and to my surprise, all the logs of all the customer database was saved in a text file, which means open for hacks, open for compliance issues, open for a nightmare to hit them every single day. So while startups are going out and investing in open source, and they're the kind of organizations that are probably not risk averse, they're very, they roll up their sleeves, they're all out there to take risk with open source, but they also need a ton of help because all of these startups actually are not thinking compliance first. What they're thinking is how can we break the rules of this industry and enter whatever it may take. Let's take an example of Google. What Google does every few quarters is to push the envelope of privacy and quietly say, we're coming up with a new feature. Now, all of a sudden, Europe comes up in arms and says, no, that's a wrong feature. You can't actually do this to us. Privacy is a big issue, all of that. But take this track record, take this line of thought. See, any global organization will push the envelope on privacy, they push the envelope on the industry and try a new thing. And that is where boards and investors are extremely worried. Because there is so much of risk that these startups are onboarding because they are not compliant. Look at eWork as a classic example. It was a bubble really does. So one of the things I speak a lot about to a lot of these startups and a lot of these traditional organizations is how we should think in the industry like a bank. And why do I say that? Anybody who's worked with a bank knows process is God. Compliance is God, right? And that is the thought process all of these organizations need to have. But when process is God and compliance is God, which means you're moving too damn slow. Let's look at Visa. Visa spent $5.3 billion to buy out Plaid because Visa is a traditional financial services organization that couldn't move as fast. And Plaid was actually moving too fast. So the way to think about it, the way you speak to your customers, please tell them to think like a bank, but execute like a software firm. And why is that extremely important? Is because when you think like a software firm, you think minimum viable products.
It's around digital technologies to be relevant in the future. I'd love to sort of give you another example if time permits. So there's one of Asia's largest banks right now has POCs, around 253 POCs around chatbots. The idea is if these 253 POCs, even if 30% is successful, which is about 70-odd chatbots. It will help automate 15% of their back office processes, which means they save in excess of about $25 to $30 million per process on an annuity basis. So that's how organizations are now testing and trying with a ton of these technologies to be far more agile and relevant to the future. Now, this sentence really interests me, and because with all of these changes coming in, the CTO profile is changing, the ask from the CTO is changing, and one of the CTOs I met recently, he's a CTO for a very large automobile company, and he said, Sanchit, the expectation of me is no more to sort of have uptime in 5 nines. You know, the 5 nines is dealt by my IT managers. The expectation of me is that the moment I go and ask for additional $10 million of investment in a big data or data lake project, they say, how many million customers are you going to add? And that's the ask of a new CTO. And why is that important for us to know? Why does this audience need to know this? Is because when you go and talk to these guys, we're so used to selling 5 nines and 3 nines and 4 nines and SSDs and all of that, we forget that what we need to talk to them about is none of that, because that's lumbing. What we need to talk to them about is their customer's customer. Ultimately, will our technology or our solution that's being proposed to them will help them add more customer satisfaction and in the end help them generate more revenue. And each company I go to, a lot of these and the others who I consult with are all sort of worried about this. And of course they're investing with the view of tomorrow because they want to be able to battle all of these challenges like I'm battling Clicker right now. So, what are they investing in? They're investing in cloud, they're investing in microservices, they're investing in open source data, investing in APIs and a telephone of that. Well, all these investments are great. I'll put this in perspective. About 5 years ago, if you were to sort of split the IT budget into business as usual and innovation, it was 95-5, and 5% of the IT budget was really going towards innovation. That number today stands between 25 to 35%. And that's a great measure of how organizations are changing their thought to adjust to new scenarios. Okay, so what's going to happen here on? See, the level playing field for all our customers, end user customers, is going to be the same. We will break them down into 5 core components. Now, before we go into these 5 core components, let's look at a very strong corollary. What's the corollary? Those of us who've worked with a telco know how the industry's evolved. So back in time, each of these telcos was investing a ton of money, a lot of capital, time, energy, and money to manage their own assets around towers. So beyond the time, what happened was that they had too many battles. The towers had to be maintained, it was expensive, it was time-consuming, it was a very manual process. And over the course of time, what happened was that to increase their coverage, a lot of the towers were together. So the Vodafone had the tower together along with Airtel. Beyond the point, they realized it's not making any capital sense for us to do this individually. So they came up with Indus Towers. And they said, all of us get together and manage towers in one single seamless way. And then their battle graduated to the second level, which was, we don't have the right technology, we don't have the right data center, we don't have the right infrastructure. Let's start investing. Look at public news of how Airtel's improved in this country. Look at how Syntel's improved in this country. After the towers was hived off, they started implementing for the last decade, along with IBM, around core infrastructure data center assets. But when that environment is stabilized, where is the battle now? The battle is on intelligence and data and analytics. Because in the end, today, after Jio has come in and disrupted the telecom market, what everybody cares about is hold that customer wallet. And that's what they're mining today, every telco. And that's how every industry is going to change overall. What you will see over the course of time, that there's going to be distributed computing. And why distributed computing? That people will first move from centralized cloud environments to maybe decentralized cloud environments, and then ultimately a distributed cloud environment where what they don't want to care about is managed infrastructure. So yesterday, as I said, I was in Bangalore with Reddit Data and approached the same problem in a very different way. Ecosystem, because there's 3 sorts of APIs. One is an open API, which is the likes of Ubers and Ola, which help you sort of talk to your ecosystem and exchange data. The second sort of an API is actually a partner API. And third sort of an API is a private API. And let's understand the use cases of these. The private API is essentially used in any DevOps environment today, where what you do is to make repeatable assets and of let's say, a simple workflow to ensure there's absolutely no brainer. It's optimized to the next best level. Let's look at DBA. Autonomous databases are coming in. That's part of the private APIs. Second form is the partner APIs, which will be, by the way, the next biggest opportunity, because everybody cannot be an open API company, everybody cannot be an Uber. It's a journey. So the private API, the partner API, lies bang in between. And what's a partner API? I'll give you an example and then explain the concept. So one of the largest manufacturers of watch in this country had a very interesting problem. It was producing 1 million watches a month, but the data of the sale and what was being sold came in a quarter late. So they had absolutely no visibility on how to sell, what to sell, where to sell, at what price. And of course, the product was very dead. There was no route for customer feedback to come in. So what they created was a very simple application, which is called a partner API application. What that did was to give a very small, very light app to every partner, every reseller in the country, be it Assam, be it Chennai, and each time a watch was being sold, an RFID was being scanned. And all it did was to allow for near real-time use of data going back to the organization, which meant the partner API helped them gain a ton of intelligence from the ground, which was a quarter late. So the business planning exercise, the logistics exercise, the supply chain, the product, everything has become wonderful. So the ecosystem and, ecosystems based on APIs is the next big battle. And as we sort of go towards that, we will have the entire journey of microsystems, we'll have microservices, and we'll have a ton of work going around APIs. The third battle, once we sort of standardize all of these computing and ecosystems and APIs, is going to be data. We'll go back to the telco example. The reason you are with Airtel or a Jio is because the customer experience is way better. And the reason the customer experience is better is clearly because they know you better. Like, for example, I said, I'll give you an example. Yesterday,